I have a guest here that, you know, I don't think I've ever called you this before until today.
Okay.
But I have the Honorable Minister Alexa Lightbourne here.
Yes.
JPMP. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be able to have a conversation with you, but I'm good.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, we've known each other for a while.
Right.
But this is, you know, things are, first of all, congratulations on your win in your constituency 14.
Yes.
So, you know, that's a big deal.
It is
that
a big
must have been
deal.
exciting for you.
Yes.
Can you talk me through a little bit about kind of your feelings on that?
So I'm still a little floating. You know, it's been probably just over a month now since my appointment, the election, not only being called, but canvassing, putting my name and face out there for public service in a different way. And I'm still trying to let my feet be planted, grounded, which is really important anyway to make, you know, good decisions. You want to ensure that you're grounded. And
of course.
I'm excited. I'm happy. I always embrace challenges. I've always been one that I do not like, you know, the normal. I like challenges. I like things that look to be difficult. And I think that I have the thought that can reimagine, you know, status quo and make things evolve in whatever space I am. If I'm in frontline politics or otherwise, I've always been that one that is drawn to those things. So I'm excited and I'm taking it on.
Right, exactly. And for folks that may not know your background, I mean, you're not new to any of this.
No.
So your previous role in head of operations and what was it, chief of staff?
Yes, exactly. That was
the premier.
Correct. So that was my most recent role. But I have been in politics for a very long time. I've worked on the Obama campaign. I've worked in 6 Caribbean islands, advising prime ministers and working on different sort of strategic and process improvement is essentially my primary skill, my core competency. I have a law degree, and I've done an array of things to, you know, inform my current position, my way of thinking, and it is new to be the face that is associated with decisions. Whereas before, if you're the advisor and, you know, I've given my best advice was my statement. And then if you do it, great. If you don't, that's on you, you know, but.
So now it's on you.
Now it's on me. So it's a little different. And I am conscious of that. And so although the thought process and whatever is determined to be the best next step is still the same, I want to be super, super, super sure, so that, you know, it is when they do come to me, as they should, hold those who are in frontline governance accountable. When they do come, I can say, yes, I made this decision and this is why. I've thought about it. I've examined all of the other components, and this is what I thought was best to do.
I love that. I love that. So now in charge of the Ministry of Home Affairs, correct?
Yes, I am Minister of Home Affairs.
So talk me through kind of your thought process now. You know, you've got this new responsibility. You now are in charge of a very, very important big department for, you know, I mean, just in general, but for the island now specifically, I think more than ever, it's a very, very, very big role.
It's a big role. And, you know, it's something that I'm saying, wow, like, am I being set up here? But ultimately, I think cost of living as what the mandate that the Ministry of Home Affairs has been tasked with is so crucial, and it's also so important to every single Bermudian. The Home Affairs has transitioned from its previous iterations. It used to be, you know, responsible for municipal reform, responsible for immigration at one point, even most recently environment was part of what it was responsible for. But we now see, because of the needs of the community changing, the ministry and its focus has also changed. And so because of that, we have now had a very focused approach, which will include energy. I have consumer affairs under my remit, which is where the cost of living is primarily held, but energy costs are also as part of that. And telecommunications and broadcasting, and the regulatory authority is also the non-governmental or quasi-governmental organization under the Ministry of Home Affairs.
Gotcha.
Additionally, I have responsibility for CARICOM. So we've been talking about CARICOM membership, and so that would be part of my remit as well, to determine what will be required. You know, is this great for Bermuda, and what do we need to know better to make that decision?
Absolutely. And I'm glad that, while you're mentioning energy and all these other things that fall under the overall cost of living, because I think a lot of people don't really understand that where it stems from, like where's the start of our issues with regards to the rising cost of living, not just here, but everywhere.
Yes.
Number one. And number two, if Bermuda being what Bermuda has always been, an expensive place, obviously we feel it more and it affects us more. So the fact that, energy and the other things that you mentioned are in that as well, that really helps you to be able to see the whole picture when it comes to cost of living,
also
right?
Really also very, very, very important to note that cost of living it's very complex. Like, it's also housing, but I'm not the minister responsible for housing. And so there will be a requirement to collaborate across ministries as we step through addressing cost of living. But I think that the best approach for me, what is manageable in the first instance, is to say, what is under my direct remit? What am I directly responsible for? And then we can look at, what are the cross-ministerial and departmental synergies that can also have the impact of lowering costs. So I'm starting with energy under my direct remit. I'm starting with essential goods, which is under consumer affairs, also under my direct remit, and beginning to unpack it thereafter.
So what does a regular day in your life currently look like right now? And let's start from when you get up. I'm not just talking about the work, but I mean, because, you are a mother as well, correct? So, what time do you get up? What does your day look like for anybody that's seeing you in your life and everything you've accomplished and the things that you're doing?
Right.
You know what I mean?
So I am still navigating the balance, candidly. So the balance that is work-life balance that is sleep versus non-sleep balance. I struggle. So I think people would be mortified to learn how little sleep I get. However, what drives me is the passion to do a great job. And so I'm unwavering in that, but I also recognize how important boundaries will be through this journey. And I'm still working through that. So I have prioritized, ensuring that my work and my family are like the two things that I'm most concerned about. And then myself and these other things are less. And I say that softly because I don't advocate for it, but I'm just telling you, if you're asking me the question, I will give you the response. But I don't want people to say, I want to do this, and so therefore that's what I need to be doing. Because it's not, everyone has to find their own rhythm. And so I'm in training big time in terms of finding that balance. In fact, I actually went to the doctor last week because I'm like, okay, even though the world and the things that I'm doing, my world is getting really, really busy, I need to make sure that I'm still healthy, because if I'm not here, then,
Exactly. Nothing happens.
Can't do anything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I mean, I'm always just curious as to how a person's life really does change.
Yes.
When you do take on these roles, because now, you are representing the people in a whole different way.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So do you feel like you've had to kind of almost change the way you move a little bit, or are you still able to be yourself? Are you still able to kind of...
So I will always be myself, but where am I being myself may change.
Gotcha.
I'm always going to be myself. I think what is also required of the new public servant, public facing, front facing politician is that there is that consistent authenticity. So I liked soca before, I'm still going to like soca now. I like Afrobeats before, I'm still going to go, and I'm going to do the same things. The frequency that I do them, and where I may enjoy having fun may shift because I've matured.
You just don't have the time.
And I don't have the time. Exactly. I'm like, the time it's going to take me to get dressed, be out. I could just listen to this really good
you're gonna do all the things
at home. Yes, exactly. So it's just prioritizing, right? But I think I'm always going to be myself. I'm always going to give, the honest, truthful response. And I think even on the doorstep prior to me being minister, that was one of the things that people were happy to hear, that there wasn't just like a textbook response. There are some things that, we could do better. Absolutely. I agree. It's not like, giving you a list of talking points that sounds great. It's about, no, these are lived experiences that I'm experiencing too. And so cost of living is impacting me too. So it actually, in as much as I recognize the challenge that is ahead, it is something that also serves the benefit of my world, my universe, and also people, the generations that are impacted in my specific orbit. So that's what motivates me. That's what brings me back to work every single day. We were talking before about how, even, your family has evolved to doing different things, consultancy. There's an uptick, right? Exactly. Everyone thinks, you know what? I don't have to do it this way anymore. This is what works best for me. But I made a choice to do the frontline politics, hoping that actually other people will to find their authenticity and be and confirm that it's okay to do it, even though that's not maybe traditionally what others have done.
Right. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to me when we talk about going back to cost of living, right? Because we can't continue to do the same things that we were doing previously, right? Change has to happen in order for us to really evolve and tackle these challenges. And speaking of change, as we know, everybody's talking about it. What's going on over on the other side of the pond? Well, the other side of the pond is the UK. So
we can reimagine that too.
In our same waters, right across the way. They're doing a lot of drastic things that are affecting a lot of people's lives in real ways. And Bermudians want to know, how is that going to affect them? And I know that you're new in the role, and I know that you're just kind of disseminating all the information and trying to figure out, what's the best move for us. But are there any kind of preliminary thoughts that you can share in terms of just how you feel about these things that are being dropped on us and how we navigate?
So I think in appreciating that the geopolitical environment is rapidly evolving. I mean, even Trump is changing his mind, day to day.
And he should, because he's making some... Okay.
Right, exactly.
I won't get into that.
Correct. There are some risks that are associated in places which we've traditionally imported from. But I think in stepping through the challenge ahead and how we might best navigate, it also presents an opportunity for us to reimagine the status quo, reimagine how we've always done things. And so that is a place in which I, pivot. It's, yes, we want to maintain a level of reliability. We want to maintain appropriateness and keep costs down. Absolutely. But things that we may have automatically said no to before, maybe we say, well, maybe, or maybe we explore, the extent to which we can diversify where we get our goods. We've always had it this way. That's it. We don't use, as we've evolved in technology, we have to evolve the way we do things as well.
Right.
We don't use dial-up for connection. We don't use old traditional phones. And so we can't be okay to modernize in some ways, recognizing that it's actually modernization is a ecosystem, holistic change that actually will impact every single pillar of our world. So as we determine the best next step, I am constantly reimagining what could be and how we might be able to safeguard the future and future geopolitical changes by taking this as an opportunity to think about it today, because you can't wait to think about it once it becomes a crisis.
Correct.
That's the challenge.
Correct.
You have to think about it early. And so this is a potential challenge. It's brought us all around the table, from food security to other sorts of pillars of our economy and cost, quite frankly. And so I think it's a great time to think about how we might better diversify and also safeguard ourselves, because we actually have so many resources here that we can tap into that we've never maybe been required to do so.
And now might be the time to do that, right?
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. I mean, obviously this is not my world at all, so I feel like I'm speaking from the place of...
But you go to the grocery store, right?
Exactly.
You pay electricity bills.
This place of an average Bermudian. And, I guess everybody's wondering the same things. Like, are we looking at conversations now with Canada that we weren't before? And are we looking at the UK, and is that feasible? Or,
no,
can you share some insight?
Conversation has been off the table. We have had discussions with Canada. In fact, the government, although it's shipping in particular is the main, concern at present, it is, the way in which we've had our shipping routes and, the players in that space have, come around the table to have conversations about how do we reimagine the shipping routes. conversations with Canada have happened, as well as overseas CARICOM partners as well, to see what is the most viable solution, or is this just a contingency plan just in the event that it does become untenable, or we know for sure that this is no longer going to be a financially viable option in terms of keeping our shipping routes as they are. But it is a evolving conversation, but the conversation is definitely being had. It's definitely being explored, because every single day we're all kind of wondering about how this will impact us and those who live and work in Bermuda, who we've been elected to serve, quite frankly.
So can you tell me a little bit about the cost of living summit?
Yes.
So I know that you guys have put out surveys, right?
Yes.
To business owners to try to get some feedback on these things that we're talking about here. And have you gotten any feedback yet, or?
Yes. So in Parliament about 3 weeks ago, right after my appointment, I said, okay, the mandate is cost of a living. What does that look like, and how do we step through it? And, informed decisions start with information. They start with data. And so, coming from Deloitte and my other, technical background and my experience, that's where I started. And I said, I need to be able to hear and quantify the lived experiences of both businesses and also members of the public, so that I can also be supported with any sort of policy that is shifted. It's not just, I think this is a good idea. It is,
right.
This is what people have said about their cost of living experience. This is what they say. This amount of people have said so. And so it's not just anecdotal or just speculative. It's actually data driven. And so launching this survey was step one, survey that included a specific business survey, cost of doing business, and then lived experiences for members of the public, available at the costofliving.gov.bm website. And it has really been insightful to see the information, also inform either, proposals that have either been advanced or maybe we are looking to evolve. And the survey will close at the end of April. And so at that point, we'll really be able to hone in on what the data is telling us. But it launched on Friday, and we've had over 600 for the public. Wow. Like, it was a huge response. In less than 24 hours, I think we had just over 350 for just the public alone. And we've also been able to hear back from approximately 250 businesses.
Okay.
And that was launched first, but silently, if you will, in terms of targeted to different business groups, organizations, the importers, the grocers, etc., to understand their costs as well. And following that, we did a focus group to say, okay, this is what we saw from the data, but can you contextualize that a little bit more? And so we were happy to have a partner to host that focus group for us. And again, as I'm learning more, it is super insightful, but it better equips and informs the decisions that will happen as we look to address the costs.
I love that. That's how you truly represent, right? You have to have some sort of hard data first, right?
Yes.
So with that being said, I know it's early. Obviously, you're going to have a full report that's going to drop at some point. But would you be able to share kind of some of the things that were, I would say, at the top of the list, one for the public and one for the businesses? Like, what are the people saying and what are the businesses saying? If you're seeing a trend, obviously, like I said, full report to follow. But where you are right now, any insight?
So I would say that there were a number of really interesting trends, I would say. I think we also added a rental relationship, so landlord-tenant relationship in the public survey, because as that is also a pillar. So I don't do housing specifically, but a housing relationship includes the landlord and tenant relationship, and that's under my direct remit. And at present, we have two different pieces of legislation that informs a relationship with the landlord and the tenant. One may be a rent control property, so under a certain ARV, and then another is everyone else, basically. So if your ARV is anything higher than, I think, 22,800, which is not really it's not a metric in terms of value, but it's the standard that is used to determine the ARV.
Gotcha.
Then you would be under rent control. And so just learning that people would prefer not to go to court. You see landlords challenged with repairs and tenants challenged with the fact that their landlord cannot repair their property. So it's clearly a direct correlation.
Right.
So they can't afford to repair them. And so that's why the tenants may have particular challenges, or they appear to prefer, a more tribunal experience to resolve that versus going to the courts and that process. So that was interesting because at present you do have to go to the courts. So how do we reimagine to enhance that landlord-tenant relationship and quickly remedy things that are that people are saying are their challenges? So that's just one. And that even isn't a determined change, because we need to unpack what does that look like? What's the composition of a tribunal?
Right.
And what type, what is the remuneration? Is that more or less costly than doing it in the courts? Because we're looking at it also and how it impacts the courts if we keep it as at present. So this is how informed decisions are made. There's so many pillars and it can kind of get heavy. Like you unpack one and you unpack something else as well.
My head is spinning
No,
just from
don't spin. Don't spin.
No, well, I mean, I'm just being honest,
Yes.
right? Because me trying to grasp and understand, like you said when you started, right?
Yes.
Is that this is a complex
It's
thing.
very complex.
It's layered. There's lots of components that make up what is and what results in being Bermuda's cost of living. And
Absolutely.
It's not just a one
just like a you
fix
can
all
just do
answer.
this. No, not at all.
You absolutely can't.
And it looks easy, I think, also from the outside looking in. People have views about leadership. They have views about politicians, and I think it can be the work that is required gets lost, right? And not everyone works the same way. Not everyone is sacrificing the same way, but it is not something that I've recognizing from behind the scenes for so long, the value and the ability to actually make tangible changes. That was my driver. Like I actually can help to make people's lives better. I can actually safeguard my daughter's future, but it is complex, and I knew that I think this way and I'm okay. I get excited by reading legislation and looking at the provisions. The average person's like, I'm going to sleep, and so I'm up reading it because I'm like, well, if I understand this better, then I can contextualize something else better. So I'm that person, and it's not often how people receive me. It's kind of something that I just do.
Right.
But it's me, it's just a different part of me that I'm still Alexa authentically, but this is just a part that maybe most may not know about me. When you talked about earlier, do I have to move differently? No, I'm still me. I've always done this, but you just didn't know about it. You know what I mean?
Now,
I'm just doing it.
Now you're front and center.
Exactly. I'm responsible. Exactly.
And, we talked about it earlier as well, energy and how it relates to cost of living. So I believe there are some initiatives that are taking place in that space. If you can.
Yes, and I didn't fully answer your question. So let me tell you we are having a summit. So the data was step 1.
Got you.
The data is and the focus group is going to inform step 2, which is an actual summit. The format and how that actually is going to take place is still unfolding. But we've put together strategic teams to do kind of the day-to-day analysis and legislative recommendations. And then we also have a cost of living commission, which is a statutory body that will provide their input as well. But they're board members. They also have their own jobs and roles. And so the expectation of progress with boards can be challenging sometimes because they also have their personal lives. So
other responsibilities.
And so I thought it would be unfair to use that knowing it's a topical and very urgent issue. So we put together a small strategic team, and they will kind of use the learnings and the information from the commission and execute the summit. The summit will yield both short and long-term proposals and recommendations. Keeping the public engaged at every step is crucial, and allowing them to weigh in on even some of the suggestions that have come out of the summit. And then that's where we're able to implement and or legislate as required. So that's the summit that you asked me about.
Got you. And so that doesn't have any date set or anything.
Not
yet,
at present,
right? So,
but it is a every single day thing that our ministry is working on.
Right. So big picture focus. Then.
Yeah, big picture focus, but to recognize, since even the 1 month that I've been appointed, we've had a survey, we've created a survey, we've launched a survey, we've created a team. The team has met the Cost of Living Commission.
It's a lot in 4 weeks.
Exactly. I'm not playing. I am very focused on it. It's a lot in 4 weeks, and that is a pace. So the suggestion that just stay tuned. Like, this is definitely a priority. And so I just don't want that to also be lost in, us explaining the journey and also informing people about the journey, because people want to know and they say, we haven't heard anything since. But then when they do know, they're like, oh, it sounds like it's going to be a long time. But actually, this this is a thorough process, and we are inviting people to take part, inviting their insights, inviting their thoughts on it. And although they're not unpacking all the different pillars like we are, know that when we come with a recommendation, we've unpacked the unintended consequences and think this is the way we ought to travel, because this is best for us, and considering the environment that we're in as well. So
so with that being said, the message we have to the folks that just love to complain but not actually do the actions, we're urging them to go out and check out the survey. Please give your feedback there, so that we can actually get the information in, the data in, and make the right decisions based off of the feedback, because you can only really action on what you have.
Absolutely.
So it's important for people to go out and really get involved.
If you think the survey ought to ask another question, send us a note. We can figure out a way to filter that in the future. Like, there's no process that is so fixed that it can't change. And that's the key, right? We can do it differently. Help us to learn better as well. Help us to be better informed. If you know one small thing that you think could change the way that we see it, inform us, call us, reach out, because it doesn't serve anybody if we don't know.
If you don't know. Exactly.
It doesn't serve anybody.
Exactly. Well, I mean, to me, it looks like you've got your hands full and more, but I think you're very capable.
Thank you.
And, I'm loving the progression, and I just can't wait to see where it goes. And hoping that, we really do see some positive changes.
Thank you.
In what is going on, which just feels like, I don't want to say a crisis, but
it feels heavy. It feels a little heavy. It does. It feels heavy. I think also Bermudians are also accustomed to living a certain way, right? We've been very, very, very fortunate. And so what this represents is a threat to life as we've known it.
Absolutely does.
And so when you have that,
it affects a lot of people in a lot of real ways.
It does. So. It does. And I think that is where you say, okay, how do I mitigate that threat? Mitigate it doing the thing I've always done, or mitigate it exploring something new. And so I think the exploring something new has never maybe been talked about as often as maybe it could be. It's about, no, we're going to keep it. The security you felt before, we're going to do what we can to keep that security. But I think it's an opportunity. I'm not to say that we're going to just rip everything up and destabilize things. No, it's about, what does this present? What does this present? And how can we capture this whatever we learn about the opportunity to benefit and safeguard things for us in the future?
Right. Right. And speaking of the future, so a question that, our listeners, people that watch the podcast, I know they're going to say, Ross, you got to ask this question.
Don't ask it. Whatever you're thinking, and if it's what I'm thinking you're thinking, don't ask it.
Is my Belco bill going up?
No, I cannot promise it. Belco is a private entity, right?
Yes.
And so government is not, eligible to determine the price that Belco ultimately charges. However, the way that a Belco bill is calculated is regulated by the regulatory authority. So the different things that they think, should be return on their investment, or if they, purchase things, whatever is their operational expenses versus their capital expenses, that is all calculated through the RA's methodology without making everyone's head spin. And then
I'm still following. So
yeah, okay, I'm laying it down.
I'm
synthesizing it, but there are different components that the regulatory says they explore it. The primary two categories is a base rate, and then there's a fuel adjustment rate, which is usually the one that changes and people hear about more often.
So can I ask you that? Because again, it's us people that just don't know. Is this now affected by the tariffs, the fuel adjustment? Is the fuel, all of that, is that affected by what's going on over there?
Potentially. Okay. The cost of oil, because again, even the way that fuel and fuel costs are calculated, it's like the cost of fuel, the cost to ship the fuel, there are different pillars. Like everything has multiple, lines of that contribute. And then government has a tax on fuel as well, which it has consistently lowered to do its part. That is the part that it tries to do to lower electricity for Bermudians. But that methodology is managed by Belco, by the regulatory authority.
Okay.
And so that is how we ultimately come up with it. Now, in terms of evolving and reimagining even energy. It's about how do we still maintain power, maintain reliability, but also consider our energy goals for the future. So we're talking solar, we're talking about other types of technology, which is rapidly evolving.
That's what I like to hear.
Yes. How do we usher that in? So we have a technical document, which is called the Integrated Resource Plan. So how are we going to integrate new types of energy resources into our current infrastructure, from the traditional fossil fuel, burning, generating industry? What do we want for us in Bermuda in the future? So it has a 2035 goal, but as we learn, as technology also is evolving and as costs are also going up, this is again an opportunity to say, how can we also look at that? How can we get there faster? How can we open up the ability for other types of technologies to enter into the marketplace, while still recognizing that we cannot just disregard Belco, who has invested and provided power for us over, made capital investments on behalf of the Bermudian people, and we don't have rolling blackouts, for example. We don't have that as our reality here in Bermuda. Other islands do, and so because
that is correct.
That is, I used to live in Antigua. I'm like, where is the power? But this never been our Bermudian reality. So we have been fortunate, but that comes at a cost. And it's about balancing that, being able to see little to longer ways, short term to long ways that we can get towards our energy goals, while still keeping, the traditional players financially viable in some ways.
Okay. I love how you answered that, because as we said before, it is complicated.
It's very complicated.
I mean, you include a private entity.
Yes.
It's not an easy fix. It's not an easy fix, but it is something that you are working on and that people are working on, and we're all, rooting for you to help us.
Please root, come join the front line and things.
With regards to that, you know what? This has been a great conversation. I've learned a lot.
Okay, good.
So, I do appreciate your time. I know you're a very, very, very busy lady.
I am, but I always have time to communicate. I think, at least even if people understand the journey that's being traveled, they're like, okay, she's doing something.
Exactly.
Something's happening.
Things are happening.
Things are happening.
And a lot has happened in the first month.
Yes.
So, I'm excited to kind of see where things go. And, hopefully you can check in with us again and give us some of the progress reports after the summits and different things like that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So,
and even, I don't know, we can figure a way to even have, I don't know, we'll see, but that's a great idea. And I would love to integrate even you and your audience in a way that makes sense for them. Not being in a summit may not be for everyone, but how do we involve you and your viewers in the summit?
For sure.
Great idea. Love it.
All right. Well, as we're about to close out, are there any shout outs, anything you have to say? Anything
when are you
we've
joining
forgotten about?
Frontline, Paul? What are you going to do? You're going to change, be a DJ and a politician, or be a... I don't know. Influencer differently. It's still influencer.
Tell me, me as a politician, I could never.
Why?
I could never do what you.
This is what I said. Why not?
We need a whole nother podcast for that.
I feel like this is how we reimagine leadership. Who knows, right? Because I think people always felt like it's maybe not for them, but it's really about do I think I can make a change in some way, big or small? If the answer is yes, it could be you.
Well, I think you gotta chip on me for that one. We gotta talk about that one.
Okay. Can I also talk about another burn that I want to pick? Okay,
sure.
So we were supposed to get together to do one particular thing. What was that?
Yes, absolutely. DJ lessons.
Yes.
Yeah.
What has happened?
The DJ school is literally right there.
Okay.
Like it's next door. Okay. So.
Let's go. I'm ready. I will make time. I was
just about to say, when are we
now
doing
I'm
this?
more busy, but I'm going to make time. Yeah, exactly. We'll figure it out.
No, we're definitely going to get you in.
Okay.
And you know what? We can also post that journey as well.
If it's a good one. Yeah.
No, I think
even the blemishes. Yeah, I know they're gonna be like, "Don't hire her. Stick to it." No.
So for folks that don't know, she's actually expressed interest in
how many years ago?
A long time. Exactly. A long time. And learning how to DJ, and got really excited when the DJ school that I have was announced.
Yeah, it was a birthday gift actually for me. So I was like best birthday gift ever. Actually.
Let's schedule it. Let's get it done.
Let's
get
do
it done.
Let's do it. I appreciate your time.
No, thank you. Thank you for stopping by. And this has been another edition of the Irie 98 podcast. Thank you so much for listening, for watching. Subscribe to the podcast, and for more conversations like this about things affecting our community and just good fun and everything in between, just visit Irie98.com.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you.